Hello, I'm Chris Januszewski and welcome to the Rebellious Times Podcast. Today we've got Michael Lamb, CEO of nativeMsg, on the show, and we'll be exploring how the rise of rich communication services is paving the way for a more dynamic, engaging and effective approach to customer communication. Hi Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. And yourself?
Yeah, doing great, thanks. Thanks very much for joining me. I think we've got some really interesting technology to talk about here and a really interesting evolution of messaging. So thank you for coming on. Um, I'd love to kick this off with learning a little bit about your background, who you are, kind of what your work
Sure,
history is, and how you arrived at building this business.
sure. So I started a text messaging company with my co-founder in 2003. The idea or the genesis of it came in 2001 when I was working for a company that was selling construction leads to contractors. And at the time, if you're old enough to remember, there were Nextel phones that were little walkie-talkie phones where you press the button. Those were in everywhere in the construction industry, and those were Sprint Nextel. And at that time, text messaging, no one really knew it existed. But what you could do is you could send a text message to an email address, basically. So using what's called SMTP, so it would be the phone number at AT&T.com. You could send a message to that phone. So I won't get into the details of all of it, but we had access to numbers in the construction industry. And back then, when you bought numbers, you bought a block of 10,000. So if you had one, you had 10,000. So we were able to create large lists of phone numbers. This is before anybody even knew what text message spam was. It wasn't even a thing. And we started using it for outreach, and it worked. And then I moved on from that opportunity. And while I was looking for my next opportunity, I was living in Chicago. I was single. I was looking for the dollar beers and dollar cheeseburgers, if you will. And at the time, the only way to get that information was through a printed publication that came out on Thursdays. So I had the idea to take that concept of this SMS, it wasn't even called text messaging back then, and to develop a platform that you could sell to businesses, specifically bars, restaurants, and nightclubs for my own personal use, to allow them to build lists of phone numbers and then send text messages to those users. And that's how the whole thing started.
So
And
promotion
then
messages with their services and promotions and events and those sorts of things.
100%, exactly. Yep. And the thing that really happened, and I would love to say we did this on purpose, um, but like most things, you kind of fall into it a little bit or it approaches you. We started to do a lot of business with people that were promoting events and different things like that. And the people that were on those lists were really kind of the people that we wanted to talk to in Chicago, people that worked at agencies, people that worked at brands, people that worked at larger companies. So them being our customer exposed our audience to our offering, which then led to those people reaching out to us and then us doing business with those people. So companies like we did work with Panera, Most Southwest Grill, Sun Times newspaper in Chicago, did a whole bunch of stuff. So
Fantastic. So that was all around SMS business model.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
And then roll on to today where you're working on rich communication services. What are the limitations of SMS and what is kind of the rationale behind this new messaging system?
The new, I mean, first of all, text messaging hasn't changed at all since it's been introduced. There's been no advancements, upgrades. You know, you can say iMessage now allows you to play games, but that's iMessage, that's not text messaging. So you have to kind of break the pieces apart to understand where there's innovation and where there's not innovation. And there has been no innovation in regards to SMS or MMS for 30 plus years. And during that period of time, smartphones, apps, WhatsApp, Viber, WeChat, Kick, Line, right? All of this stuff has come to life, but text messaging hasn't changed at all. So I think that really is the core of the, what I would call the need out there, is to deliver an upgraded experience based upon existing technology today. So the limitations of SMS, to get into that, it really depends on what you're using it for. But primarily, when a company sends a text message, they don't know if it was read. So that stat that 98% of text messages are read, I don't really know where that came from. It's true. No one has unread text messages on their phone. But the limitations really come from, right, the analytics and the insights and what is actually happening. So if I send a text message with a URL and someone clicks that URL, I know it worked. If I send a text message with a phone number and someone clicks that phone number and makes a call, I know it worked. Other than that, I have no idea. People are not going to walk into a store with a code and say, "Hey, I got your text message and it's 5-4." I mean, we tried for you, it just doesn't, they don't do it, right?
Sure.
So those are really the limitations. Then there's another messaging option called MMS, and that enables you to send what I would call rich media, so a video, pictures, but the file sizes are so small that in today's world of the content that's being created today, you can't really send much. It's effective because now you have a visual aspect to it, but you're not able to send high def, long videos, large files, different things like that. So,
Okay. And so as we're thinking about RCS, what is the vision here? What are the possibilities?
so that's a big question. Most people would answer it in a, now I can send a verified, branded, trusted message. But it's much more than that. And really, the term message isn't necessarily correct either. Because really, RCS is more of an application development protocol or platform than it really is a notification system. Notifications are one part of it, but there's much more to it now, from the aspect of, we have a brand new GUI that exists inside of the messaging app. We now have the ability to more easily connect into third-party applications and third-party tools like CRMs, CDPs. It could be ad networks. It's really, the good and the bad is that a lot is possible and anything is possible. And sometimes that can be overwhelming, and other times it's very exciting. So it really just depends on the use cases, and it depends on, what someone is trying to accomplish. But we're moving from this, what we say black and white television, to color TV inside of the messaging app on phones. The other aspect of it is, when we talk about applications, there is the ability to move functionality and features from native apps into RCS. So now we're starting to talk about interactive, engaging, the ability to measure metrics. Somebody taps a button, I know they tapped the button, now I can create attributes around them, insights. And it's also an owned channel. So instead of WhatsApp, TikTok, Instagram, where you're creating all of this content, throwing it out there and hoping that someone sees it and pays attention to it, and then comes to you, while you are feeding tons of data to the companies that own those platforms. RCS is very different because the only people that know what's going on in that conversation are the end user and the brand. So that is not shared with anyone. It's not used by anyone else. It's not, there is, some monitoring for things that are illegal and offensive, and right, just the normal kind of filtering stuff. But yeah.
Fantastic. So is it positioned more as a business to consumer, brand to consumer service, or business to business?
Uh, well, to take a step back, so there's two versions of RCS. One version of RCS is phone to phone. So if you are talking with someone, you're on an iPhone and you're talking with someone on an Android, now you'll see that that conversation is much better, much smoother, full-size videos, full-size pictures. Because before, what was happening is Apple spoke Apple and Android spoke Android. It didn't work. But now both sides speak RCS. So that is where we as consumers are going to see a lot of the benefit of RCS in our personal lives, in our interactions now across different devices. Then there is RCS for business. And then RCS for business is really what our focus is. And it can be B2C or it can be B2B. I always joke with people, the only difference between B2B and B2C is whose money you're spending, right? In B2C, you're spending your own. In B2B, you're spending your company's money. You still want a good experience. You still want seamless interactions. You still want frictionless. You still want easy, right? It doesn't matter. It's just sometimes some of these B2B systems have been a little over-engineered for whatever reason, but it's all going to start to come back to more of a consumer focus because ultimately it's a consumer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And how is Native Message approaching this and kind of pioneering, and what's been your journey of building Native Message as a business itself? I know you started out before COVID, and like many businesses, like many of the podcast participants who I speak to, they've had to navigate the whole COVID impact on businesses. I'd love to hear
Yep,
your story there.
sure. So in 2016 is when we really kind of came up with the idea for Native Message. And in 2016, that is when two-way business texting, which we're all used to today, it just seems commonplace, didn't exist, but was starting to kind of gain in popularity. That was also when AI popped up again, too. So that was kind of the beginning of this whole AI thing that we're in now. And obviously, computing power, better, faster, stronger for the AI. So there were these different elements that were all kind of merging together, and we saw an opportunity to create a platform that allowed brands to automate those conversations. Because when you're doing business messaging, you can't have 1,000 people texting, right? It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we came up with the idea for Native Message and, kind of more of these automations and workflows and integrating these into different channels and things like that. And one of the channels that we started with was Facebook Messenger. It was very popular back then. You could integrate into it. So we were kind of out pitching that. Very quickly after that, we were introduced to RCS. I will be very honest. I was a skeptic at first because as a marketing and salesperson, if it doesn't exist, it's hard to sell. So it was this, kind of dream of this rich media and very exciting, all of that. But from a business perspective, very difficult to get anybody to pay for it at that time. It then was supposed to launch in the US across all of the carriers in 2019. And unfortunately, they don't always get along and agree on everything. And I'm sure there was some other stuff that came up, but it never actually launched. So we had actually developed a platform for RCS for business back then in anticipation of the launch in the US, which never happened. And then shortly after COVID, so now we have this whole software platform and we have to figure out what to do with it. And it's a workflow and an automation platform kind of at the core that connects into different channels. So what are some other channels that we can start to take a look at? And during that time, Google's business messages popped into existence. Since then, it's disappeared. But we had some success with selling that. We also developed a product called conversational ads, where you could take a conversational experience embed it into an ad unit, and deliver that ad programmatically across different ad networks. We were starting to have some success with that also. And then that's really when COVID hit, and then everybody pulled back their dollars and, pulled back the spending, at least the people that we were talking to. But we had these other kind of solutions that we were out in the market, kind of pitching, selling new ideas, different things like that. In 2023, probably, is when RCS kind of popped back up and became more relevant again. And then since then, all of the carriers have adopted it. Multiple countries have adopted it. The big pain point for a lot of people was Apple. Apple adopted it in 2024. So now at this point, depending upon who you talk to, there are 60 to 80% of all of the devices in the US now support RCS for Business. And the reality is no one knows that it is in existence. No one knows that it's already on their phone. Right? We're in this massive education and awareness phase right now around RCS, how to use it, what it is. And we have a platform that has, 7+ years of R&D built into it. We have that level of experience, and we really understand it at a level that most people don't, to help people be successful.
Incredible. And it's you've been building this for seven years now, and you've built it in a place where there are a lot of dependencies. You said the carriers need to adopt it, then you need the device builders or Apple and Google
Yep.
to incorporate into phones, and to have that kind of commitment to the technology and that vision, and to stick with your vision, knowing the value it brings is very, very commendable here. What would be your advice to other founders that have, that see an opportunity, that, are in a space where they're experts in the tech, but the market's not quite ready to take it? How do they kind of hang in there and stay committed to what they know is going to eventually, take on mass adoption?
It's a great question. And it's a really hard question to answer, because you really can't tell someone how to do that. And you can't really give guidance to someone on how to do that. You just have to do it. And it really comes down to, right, it's a couple of different things. And I think from my perspective, it's a time and money investment and seeing a return. So it's been one of those situations where you've kind of been waiting, and, we've had to go out and raise some money, but mostly angels and no professional money at this point in time, and our own money. Hoping, right, that this would eventually take off. And fortunately for us, it did. But the first time it didn't. So, and we could have walked away and gone and gotten jobs and worked for people and, did that whole program. But we're entrepreneurs. I joke with my wife that I'm basically unemployable at this point in time. What would that interview be like? So tell me about what you've done for the last, I don't know, all of it, everything.
Yeah, it's that commitment to the entrepreneurship, and obviously it's got to be built into your character. There's certain aspects of your personality that many people just don't have. They wouldn't be capable of sticking with it and, staying on track. And yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible to learn.
You really have to be comfortable with no safety. Like, you have to get yourself to a place where you know that anything could possibly happen and the worst thing could possibly happen, and work through what really happens when that worst thing happens. Do they come and take my house? No. Am I doing anything illegal? No. Are my family going to get taken away from me because I was an entrepreneur and made? No. None of that happens. It's all money and time, and that's it. And the things that are really important, they don't, right? They don't come into play when you really start to peel it back and like analyze it and look at it. And at the same time, you have to have an incredibly strong support system. Now, my wife at any point in time can say, "You're done."
Yeah.
And I kind of have to listen to her. But to this point, she hasn't.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting because I'm in the first year of my entrepreneurial journey. So obviously I have Rebel Commerce Solutions. I help startups as a growth partner. And there's so many iterations and pivots I've had to make, and I've still not figured it out. I've still not figured out, the path and exactly, how to scale this and make it into a meaningful business, and there's many times of doubt, and there's many times I sit back and think, wow, what am I doing? I'm still probably employable right now. Still got a little bit of time left, but the feeling of actually building something is incredible, and it's something that you don't necessarily get in a job, that whole, you can do anything, you can really create something that's yours and that nobody can tell you what to do with is its own thing, and that's that entrepreneur's mindset. And, when I first met with you and you told me about RCS and the business and the problems it's solving, I kind of thought of WeChat, right? We spoke about that.
sure.
And, to what extent are you in effect building a kind of a WeChat for the West?
It's gonna take a long time to get there because the biggest channel that's going to get disrupted by RCS for Business is native apps. And that's really what WeChat is, right? It's taken all of that functionality and brought it into one application. Right now, inside of Google Messages and iMessage, we have SMS, MMS, and RCS. And it's early RCS. Brands are starting to get involved. Companies, they're doing very basic messaging at this point in time. But over time, I use Bank of America. And Bank of America obviously has a native app. And I'm sure it does a lot of great things. I have no idea what they all are. And I really don't care. What I care about is what's my balance and how do I pay a bill? Can I take those two features and move them into RCS? Sure. And that's what will eventually start to happen. And that's where this concept of this that's the part where it starts to kind of turn into that, when you start to move workflows, functionality, features. Think about going on a trip. You're on your phone. You got to go to the hotel app. You got to go to the car rental app. You got to go to the airline app. You got to go to the restaurant app for reservations. You got to go to the Uber app. You got to go to right? Like 9 different apps to go on an overnight trip versus being able to do all of that and then have all of that surfaced inside of RCS so that I can tap a button to check into my hotel. I can get my boarding pass to get on that flight. I can get my confirmation number or the QR code to scan to unlock the car, right? Things like where now we're starting to take and we're really starting to look at what are the core functions and features that people actually use and how do we make it easier for them to do those things inside of one app. And that's, this concept of the inbox as the new homepage is something that Google talks about. And that really just kind of ties right into this WeChat comparison. It'll get there. It'll take time, but it's all really a phone, if you think about it, is a battery, a screen, a microphone, a camera, and that's really it. It's not, and it processes all of that information, but if we don't need all of those things, we don't really need a phone. And if we have a way to consolidate all of that in a very simple, intuitive interface that makes it easier for us to do things without all the extra nonsense, there's not a person out there that wouldn't love that.
Yeah, I think we all spend too much time on our phones, so anything that can make our usage more efficient so we can get off our phone back into the real world is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
In terms of your go-to-market or the stage that you're at, as you're striking up conversations now, are you primarily looking to connect with end users, with brands, advertisers, partners? Like where is the business at right now in terms of scale?
All of the above. So it's there. No one knows this exists. So as I tell people, and haven't figured out really how to, kind of deliver this in the right way, I don't think, but there is no hard sell. There's no sales pitch. There's no, right? You can't buy something if you don't know it exists. So I have to make sure that you know it exists and educate you, bring that awareness, be part of the beginning wave of all of this to help people understand what it is, what it isn't, how to use it, and how it fits into their business. So we are talking with, I'll just go over a couple conversations we've had this week. We're speaking with companies that provide messaging services for associations and political organizations, so they are a reseller. We are talking with people that want to simply make introductions and bring us in, and then they say, hey, here's native message. This is a great here's innovation that you're not aware of. You should be thinking about it, all that kind of stuff, and then they just back away. We're also working with media companies to help them monetize RCS so that they can send out sponsored messages, branded messages, different things like that. And then talking with very large telecom operators about supporting their RCS initiatives. To our knowledge, there is no one that has a platform that is advanced with all the features and functionality that we can provide in the market today. So there are a lot of people that are reaching out to us and saying, can you help us with our RCS strategy? Do we have to build this? Can we just get it from you? So there's a lot of exploration from, brands, resellers, integrators, people making introductions, all of that. And what we're doing is we're taking all of that in to kind of figure out, what do people know? What do they don't know? Where are they confused? Where are things starting to align? How can we better explain this to someone? Because you literally can't explain it to someone because they have no visual in their head, if you're a visual person, of what it looks like because you've never seen it before. So there's these elements of educating the market, bringing awareness to the market, and that is a lot of what my role is at this point, is that education and awareness. And then hopefully when it gets to a point where somebody starts to kind of dive in deeper or more, and they're looking for a partner, we're happy to help. Or they just need somebody to answer their questions, honestly, about what it is. Because I talk with a lot of people, and they share stories with me about the salespeople that they talk with at other companies. And it's, not good.
Thank you. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they do that? Where can they find Native Message? And this is primarily for the audio listeners on our Spotify and Apple channels who might want to connect with you.
Sure. You can go to LinkedIn and look up Michael Lamb at Native Message. If you want to reach out to me directly, feel free to send me an email. And that's M as in Michael, my last name Lamb, Lamb, at Native Message. And that's spelled NATIVEMSG.com.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for this, Michael. It's educated me, and I'm excited to see where this technology goes and how you bring it to market. So I commend you on what you're doing. It's inspirational as an entrepreneur, and thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And thanks for having me. It was a good time.